put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me, that's what they supposed to. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me. Yeah, you know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move cryptically when that shit get critical. No peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout checks, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body, cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas living fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets, fuck you like you know me from. Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I can spill me some. I ain't got no mercy for these bitches, she outside with us. They on demon time, we bring them hell and the fire with us. All this smoke, niggas cut this shit.
What's good? What's good? What's cracking? Right? I know y'all see the title, right? The King Leopold Letters Revisit. The making of a black slave. A black Christian slave, right? We can get into it. Hold on real quick. Yeah. The making of a black Christian slave. King Leopold Letters Revisit, right? So yeah, of course, giving all praises to the Most High, we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world know as Jesus Christ, right? So yeah, the King Leopold letters came out in like the 1800s, late 1800s, right? Like about a decade or two after slavery, right? And this is like basically the blueprint, the the foundation of the Black Christian Church today that that we become accustomed to, right? And that's why I always ask people that profess to be a Christian. I'm like, how did you become a Christian? Like, and the answer usually what my parents was. We went to church and stuff, but then it's like, but nobody actually researched the history of Christianity and how it develops into what we have today. And we can go all the way back to the Nicene Council where they came up with all this, fancy stuff like, Jesus is God, or the Trinity and all that stuff. And if we know the history of these different doctrines that they push in religion, then we know that those things that they push, as far as like the Virgin Mary or the virgin birth, all basically the what we know as traditional Christianity, right? If only we knew that those concepts came like 200-300 years later after the death of Christ and his disciples and the original followers, right? So that was not what they were teaching during that time. you know, and if it was so, we can read it in the book, you know, because you have eyewitness accounts during that time, different apostles and stuff, and if that's the stuff that they were teaching, what they teach today in these churches, we should be able to read it in this book, but we can't, right? Um, so yeah, so we gotta, you know, be retaught this book the proper way because you know this book has been told to us through our slave masters, through our oppressors. They took our identity, our culture, our heritage. We can't expect them to now give us the you know the true and only one God, right? And through their religion, you know that doesn't make sense to practice the religion of your oppressor, right? Knowing the history that we have with them. So yeah, I don't want to go on a rant because I will, but let's get into it though, right? Let's read this decree that King Leopold put out, and now all churches around the world practice this. And if when we read this, we're gonna gotta ask ourselves some questions. Do our church operate like this? Right? The system of Christianity, does it operate like this to this day? To this day, right? Do it still operate like that, right? Hold on 1 second. Gotta get on my AV department, fix this camera thing real quick. All right. Nope. All right. So yeah. So get into it. So yeah. So it says. All right. It says. King Leopold letter to uh, the colonial missionaries in 1883. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to us to fulfill a very delicate and require much tact. You will go. Uh, you will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgian interests. Your principal object in our mission in the Congo is to never teach the niggers, what did it say? Never teach the niggers to know God, right? So it says, you will certainly uh, to evangelize, but evangelization must inspire above all Belgian interests. So these pastors are set up to not go against the government interests. That's why you'll never hear them speak against the government and all that because they got their little 501 C3 things that they get from them, right? So they can't speak ill against the government because then they won't get paid from the government, right? Then it says, your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is to never teach the niggers to know God, right? And that's why in our churches today, nobody knows God. They know how to sing, they know how to shout and jump around, but nobody actually knows what this book says. You go to the black church, nobody knows what this book say, right? They don't know what Jesus teach. They don't know the laws of God. They might know a little something. They might, know about, Daniel and the lion's den, because they, talk about that. They might know, they know the superficial stuff. They don't know the deep teachings of this book. They don't know the, the mysteries of this Bible because the Christian church is not set up to go into depth to teach us this book. I was talking to my mom a while back before I even fully got into the truth. And I was telling him, I'm like, because I was thinking about going to cemetery school, which we know that is seminary school, right? And I found out that they are instructed to speak to their congregation like they're speaking to a fourth grade classroom. So that's why they would never get in depth into this book on, what's in it, right? So it says, again, it says, your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is to never teach the niggers to know God. That's why people do not know the one and true God. They know a God that been fantasized to them, that been, romanticized to them, that some of them done made up in their head. But they would never know the true God. That's why when we read some of these scriptures in this book, they look at us like we crazy. Like, what? Not my Jesus, And because the whole system of Christianity is set up to never teach the niggers to know God. Thus, they know already. They speak and submit to Mongo, one of the Nazabean, one of the uh, Nasak Kamba, and what else I don't know. They know what they know that to kill, to sleep with someone's wife, to lie, to insult is bad. So it's like, all right, these people know the basics that, okay, to steal, to lie, to commit adultery, that's bad. They know these things, right? It says, have courage to admit it. You are not going to teach them what they already know. Your essential role is to uh, facilitate the task of administrator and industrial, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in ways it will be best to protect your interests in the part of the world. So now you wonder why we call the Christian church, especially the black men that sit in these churches, weak and docile and effeminate, because the way that it is presented to us is to create a docile person in us, to create us, to give us a docile spirit, right? To make us, weak and submissive, right? It says, your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrator and industrial, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in ways it will be best protect your interests in that part of the world. So this is why, like, we don't practice the same Christianity that they practice, right? Our Christianity that they gave us tells us that we gotta accept everything. God is gonna work it out. When we die, everything is gonna be great, because through death, then that's when we're gonna get our reward, right? That's the Christianity they teach us. Just be submissive. Just pray about it. Vengeance is the Lord. All that stuff, right? That's what they give us. But the Christianity they practice says that we would never forget 9/11, right? And they went over there and bombed Afghanistan, which nobody did anything during 9/11 from Afghanistan. They attacked Iraq, which they didn't do anything neither concerning 9/11. They didn't touch the Saudi Arabia, which actually did something concerning 9/11, right? But their Christianity tells them that they can go and bomb innocent civilians whenever somebody harms them, right? Their Christianity tells them that, we can, go after Pearl Harbor when the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor. They didn't say, just turn the other cheek, Like, come on, Japanese people. I mean, all right, okay, maybe they had a point, We sorry, Japan, All right, what you want us to do? They didn't do that. They said today will live. This day will live in infamy, meaning we will never forget this day. But they tell your black ass to forget all the stuff that happens to you, and that make us so docile to the point where we start speaking about the crimes that they commit. You have some black folks come up and say, "Oh man, you speaking hateful. You know that happened a long time ago. Why you bringing up old stuff?" But Joe dumbass just celebrated 4th of July. What happened like 200 and some years ago, right? Why you celebrating a holiday of independence that happened a long time ago? If we're going to use that logic, right? So they made us weak, right? That's why the Christian church is filled with women in there and weak, effeminate men that's ran by women in there, right? And it says for these things you have to keep watch on disinterest your savage from rich. It says disinterest your savages from riches that is plenty in their underground, to avoid that they get interest in it and make you a murderous competition and dream one day to overthrow you. So it says never allow them to understand their full potential. You know, we're gonna rob their natural resources. Don't allow them to understand the riches that they actually have, right? Let's turn their heart from this material world. You know, just make them focus on, you know, other abstract things, right? So we can rob them, essentially, right? It says for these things you have to keep watch on disinterest our savages from riches that is plenty in their underground. So don't allow these people to be ambitious and, you know, and having ideas, you know, like, nigga, what you over there doing thinking? What, you know, like, because if they understand the wealth that they have or what they can, that leverage that they have with the diamonds and the gold and all that stuff they have, they can understand their true power. And then they're going to fight you for it. And they're not going to allow you to take it from them. Because the white man want to rob you with a smile on his face, you know, while he's shaking your hand and smiling at you. And his other hand is in your pocket. That's what he want to do, right? You know, like, that's what he want to do. So it says, your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty. So it says, instead of, you know, giving them this, you know, thought of ambition that they can rise up out of poverty and one day be rich and live a good quality life, you know, don't, you know, turn them away. Teach them to love poverty, matter of fact. You know, so that's why, you know, and look how it manifests to this day. You know what I'm saying? We call ourselves ghetto fabulous, right? People used to say that. Or I'm hood rich, right? You know, because and we use these terms because inside that bubble of our neighborhood, you know, we superstars, right? And we're not able to see outside of that neighborhood stardom, right? And like I said, we all see like how that all, you know, came about just from these simple concepts that they're laying down, and our people following that and being perpetuated, and it manifests to what we see how our community is today, right? Then it says your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find a text and encourage your followers to love poverty, right? And that's why we, like I said, we admonish all the what we call the hood stuff, the ghetto stuff, right? All this, you know, negativity that we bask in, right? Our songs that we make, right? And so forth, right? And so, and it's a concentrated effort. We got to understand that it's not, you know, by chance, right? Let's just get this really, really quick. This is Psalms 83. And it says, let me start at 2. It says, Psalms 83 verse 2 says, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult in they that hate thee have lifted up their head. So saying that our enemies got a problem with us, and now they feel prideful enough to actually do something about it. Now they're gonna take they hatred and they're gonna do something about it, right? It says, and they lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, meaning these people come together and say, hey, look, I know sometimes we don't mess with each other, but them niggas over there, we definitely don't mess with them. So when we can do our little fighting, but when it comes to them, we gotta be on one accord. Agree? They said agree, right? And they said, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head, have lifted up their head, right? And it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Meaning all these nations that came together and said, you know what? We are going, no matter what's going on in our life, we are going to oppress the nation of Israel, the black, Hispanic, and Native American people. We're going to make sure that they down, right? So, no matter what's going on, right? That's why you got white people in rural America living dirt poor, still talking about, I might be poor, but at least I'm not no nigger, right? Because it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy hidden ones and consulted against against thy they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Right? So that's the whole game plan, to disrupt us from who we truly are. Right? And they use their little agents, the little racist agent provocateurs to enforce it, right? And so this is what we're dealing with. It's biblical that these people have crafted a plan to keep us disconnected from God, right? Because they know that as long as we are connected to our God, that they can't do anything to us. Like we can read in the book of Tobit, right? Back over here. It says, your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love property. Like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven. It's very difficult for a rich to enter the kingdom of God. Right? So they're talking about, yeah, take verses like those to make it seem like a rich person can't get into heaven, while all the time they're getting rich telling you this stuff. Right? And so they'll take little verses, in church, and they'll twist it and make it, sound whatever, right? That's why we got these prosperity gospels and stuff. A lot of these pastors out here talking about sowing, have you sow $1,000 seed, like God is, like God got discounts on blessings and stuff, right? Like it's Sunday, church is about to close. God is doing 30% off on blessings, right? All we need is $1,000, right? So that's not what's happening, right? But that's what a lot of our people are caught up in, that type of stuff, because a lot of our people are carnal, and they want the material stuff. So if you got a pastor telling you, oh yeah, God is gonna bless you, all you gotta do is pay this and pay that. That's like, shit, you might as well go into a Ponzi scheme. You might as well invest in a Ponzi scheme, because you're not gonna, get what you're looking for. Because just like when you invest in that Ponzi scheme, they run off with your money. Pastor did the same thing, right? So it says, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for a rich to enter into the kingdom of God. Right? So they want to twist these verses and stuff like that, right? And even though this guy kind of, blended two little verses here, but happy, when it's talking about happier are the poor, right? It's not talking about, oh yeah, it's so good to be poor. It's talking about because we have God, right? Because when you know that you don't have, you have, when you don't have, because poor people have a more uh, tendency to lean towards God, to call on God more so than a rich person would, because a rich person would depend, they depend on their money and their rich friends. So it wasn't saying per se that having money is not a good thing. It's not a good thing, but it's saying that that verse is saying that poor people tend to depend on God more so than rich people, right? Then when it says that, what it say, um, very difficult for the rich to enter into the kingdom. So, and that's like I said, because the guy put two verses together. So that part is talking about um, like charity, because some rich people become rich because of their selfishness, right? They penny pension. They don't help out the poor, right? And so they're not, they have all this money, but they're keeping it to themselves, right? Just like Bill Gates, for example, right? We know Bill Gates. Now, he says when he died, his kids ain't getting. I think he said his kids is not getting anything, or he left them $100. I don't know, one of the two, right? I could be mixing two different rich white men, but I know for a fact that I believe Bill Gates did say that he's not leaving his kids anything, right? So that's what it's talking about, being being rich and selfish. It's not talking about if you rich, you just not going. It's just hard for you to get in there. It's talking about your conduct, your personality, with that money, right? So, but anyway, yeah. So then it says if you have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affirm us. Well, hold on. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to uh, to uh, uh, to affront us, right? So basically saying anything that might put an idea or spark an idea that you know they can be equal to us, or or what did it say, so it says you have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. So to make them docile, to make them never ever think about raising their hand up to hit master, right? Make them to never ever think about going against you know those white pasty faces. That's why you know to this day, right? You have people right now. Somebody wants to attack a white person in the hood. You gonna have some little coon ass nigga. Oh, stop! What are you doing to that white person? Oh my God, stop! What is wrong with you? Leave him alone, right? Hell no! I'll stomp his ass out and leave his ass in Jerry Stone Park somewhere, right? That's what they would have did to you in one of their little sundown towns, right? So it says make them not even make them disgusted at the idea of fighting back towards us, or even having the notion to even have a rebellion. Make them, oh, you just hateful. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why you just, how the coons talk. Like, oh, you shouldn't talk like that. That's so mean. That's, I don't even know how coons talk, but how they, we heard it before. So, but this is by design. So we can almost not really blame the little Uncle Toms and coons of our people, because this was a very concentrated effort. And sadly, a lot of our people went for the okie doke, right? Um, so the name of the game is to make us docile, make us not even want to rise up or have the spirit of rebellion, right? You know, uh, that's why Martin Luther King was so influential to their white supremacist agenda, because he told us, to have a non-violence approach. And anybody knows the history of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was not from that cloth. He was from. He was actually a radical, right? He was actually wanted to go what people thought, you know, the Malcolm X route, right? He wanted to be more in your face with it, but some little guy told him, you know, hey, you know, why don't you do it non-violent? Then Martin Luther King was like, all right, yeah, I'll try it that way, right? And boom, here we go. The rest is history, right? But and you can check that out, all that out for yourself. You know what I'm saying? That you know he had a different, radical approach to it, right? Then somebody put him on Gandhi, and Gandhi himself wasn't non-violent. You want to know the truth about it, but anyway, um, yeah. Then it says, I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish, war protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon. And you must do it, everything in your power to make it disappear. So take away their ability to fight back. Dismantle their army. Let them know, hey, can't we all just get along? I was watching something, I think it was last night, like a little YouTube clip or something. Some white guy that's coming off as a ally, right? And so he's speaking, he talking good, right? I ain't gonna front on that. He talking, but it's like, but again, it's like we know. So, but now he's speaking, right? So it's kind of funny, right? Remind me of I be joking with my brother-in-law. I'll be talking about how they like that movie, Sinners, the vampires from Sinners. How they have to be invited in, right? I'm like, they're like them. They're vampires because they always want to join us. Whatever we got going on, like, hey, how come we can't join? What's wrong? How come white people can't be a part of it? Is it because I'm white? How come I can't join you? Right? So they always want to attach themselves to you. But once they attach themselves to you, that's when the vampire fangs come out, right? And that's when they usurped you, and now whatever you got going on, they done took it over. Right now, Black Lives Matter is like, it started off as a slogan. It got hijacked into something else. The whole woke thing, like black people started talking about being woke. Now woke is looked at as, it can be whatever little off tilt stuff that somebody decided to say at that moment, right? But they hijack everything once they come in contact with us. Once we give them that, hold on, let's get that real quick, because I know I try to say things that's line up biblically. So in case one of you people want to challenge what I just said, we can always go to the Bible, right? Let's prove how these people are like vampires. How they just want to you just have to invite them in. They like that those possession spirits that you just have to invite them in, right? Those little scary movies where they be doing those little seances and they have to say some words and the spirit coming into them. That's what they like, right? Let's get it real quick. Let's get it real quick. Where is it? I don't know why I can never remember exactly where it be at. Alright, that's right here. So let's start. It says Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10, right? It says, never trust thy enemy, because they are our enemy, whether you like it, understand it, believe it or not, right? Never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. So you know how iron is, right? If you have a piece of iron, and the longer you keep that piece of metal over time, it's going to begin to rust, right? It's going to begin to decay, and it's going to not be shiny anymore. It's not going to be beautiful anymore. It's going to start turning ugly, and you have to throw it away, because if you keep it, that rust, it can give you like some type of what's that? Type of hepatitis, some type of stuff, right? You get cut by that rust, right? So you got to get rid of it. So that's how these people are. They might come off, you see them at work. Hey, how you doing, Jamal? Oh, I'm doing all right. They talk to you. Hey, hey, what you want for lunch? Yeah, you talking, right? Everything's cool. But it says, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rust, so is his wickedness. So he might come off being all cool and nice and stuff. Like, hey, how come we all can't get along? Can I join you guys? Right? But it says, for like iron rust, because we know if you have a piece of metal long enough, that iron is going to begin to rust. It's going to get rusted. Some of us got an old bicycle sitting in the basement or the garage that's rusted, right? Then it says, though he humble himself. So this is when we talking about the vampire tendencies. So he humble himself. Hey, how you doing, guy? Hey, I like black people. I got black friends. Hey, this one white dude, like a couple of weeks ago, I ignored him, right? I didn't say nothing to him. Um, I'm glad he didn't really say too much to me. But he wasn't my company, so I couldn't go in on him. I wouldn't have never allowed it, of course. I wouldn't have never allowed it. So we doing our barbecue, we barbecuing, doing our thing, right? So white people, whenever they want to act like they're cool with you, they always want to, try to show you that they know something about black culture. So this guy, and one thing I hate when white people do that type of stuff is if you're going to say something, at least be current and relevant. This guy bring up, like, hey, what do he bring up? Hey, do you guys like, do or die? Like what? What type of question is that? Like, why would you ask a group of black men that's older than 30, do they like the group of Do or Die? That's from Chicago. Hell yeah, we like the group of Do or Die. Don't ask me no dumbass questions like that, especially an old ass question. So, no, I hate those type of questions because it's like, dude, like this one girl, this white girl, trying to show me that she know black culture. I almost said, this dog brings up, this female dog, she gonna say, hey, MC Hammer. Like, I was a kid when that came out. Like, black culture has advanced since those times, right? It's other things that happen in black culture since Do or Die and Twister and MC Hammer, right? So, yeah, I hate that shit. Says, although he humble himself and go crouching, take good heed and beware of him. So although they be all nice and they smile at you and but it says take heed and beware of them, meaning watch them. Always keep your eye on them, right? You gotta watch these guys, right? They're very slippery. And thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass. So meaning once you understand their tendencies, understand how they really are, their actions going to be very clear to you. You're going to see the devil in them. You're going to see the horns that's on their head, right? That white skin, that little pasty white skin is going to start looking real reddish to you, right? But you're going to see the devil in them, right? And because that's the problem. We spend our existence in America trying to get along with them, trying to do whatever it takes for them not to kill us, not to go aside our heads, right? So we learn how to coexist with them by being subservient to them. But we never really took the time to actually learn them. See, they know us. They know us like the back of their hand. That's why they do certain things to us, because they know how we're going to react, right? That's why they don't have no fear of unaliving a whole bunch of us, because what we're going to do, we're just going to sing and dance, march, talk about no justice, no peace. Then a week later, go back to twerking on TikTok, right? So they know what we're gonna do, right? They like, let them get it out, let off some steam, right? Just bring the police out there just in case, cause they know what's going on, right? But we don't know them. That's the problem. We don't know our enemy. That's why reading this book is very essential to understanding your enemy, because it tells us, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rust, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, take good heed, and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass. Right? So once we do these things, they will be very clear to us. Right? You know, they won't be able to come in, hey, how you doing, buddy? Hey, give me a little pound, you know, a little, try to be cool with you. You're gonna see, like, what you want, Cracker? What you want, Double? What are you trying to get out of me, right? What is your angle here? What are you trying to do? What do you want? What are you trying to steal and kill, right? And it says, and thou shalt know that his rust has been not altogether wiped away. So then that good white guy that you always say, oh, he's one of the good ones. He's not like the others. He's cool. You know, he listens to rap music. He like black women and all that stuff. But it says, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been all wiped away. Because it's going to come that time in the day. It's going to come that moment. That good white person that you thought was so great because they smile at you and give you a little conversation. They're going to show their horns. And it's going to hurt your feelings. Because you put so much faith in that person. Like, oh, I thought Bob was so nice. I didn't know. Like, why would he talk like that? Why would he say that? Right? Because it says, although he humble himself and go crouching, take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass. And thou shalt know that his rust has been not altogether wiped away. Ooh, now this is the point. We're getting more into their vampire ways. They're more into their succubus, their skin walking. What's that movie? Get Out. What's that movie? Alien movie from the 90s. The Mimic. We're getting more into their ways, right? It says, set him not by thee. Don't even put them by you, right? Don't even have close relationships like that, because you're going to give him an opportunity to do what he came to do, right? Because he is the devil that the Bible speaks of. Whether you like it, understand it, love it, or not, or believe it, right? That's what happened, right? They can't control it. They can't stop it, right? I tell the story all the time, right? Before we go on, I tell the story all the time. I used to work with this white guy. And we're talking about endangered animals, right? Talking about the hippopotamus. It's on the endangered list, right? So now, we're talking about solutions on how to save the hippopotamus, right? You know, so we coming up with stuff, right? Now, this guy, in his purest heart, right? In his pure white Christian heart, this is what he said, how we can save the hippopotamus. He said, just farm them and turn them into food. So I'm like, number one, who the hell is eating hippopotamus, right? Number two, how is eating them is going to freaking save them, right? That's the problem now. Why the animals are extinct, because people are eating them or killing them for whatever reason. But in his purest white Christian heart, he thought he came up with a great solution to save the animals by eating them, right? So it says, although he humbled himself, although he humbled himself and go crouching, take good heed and beware of him, though thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass. So when he said that, I'm just thinking like, you just can't get right. Just like what it says in, I think it's Habakkuk, the spirit that's up in him is not upright. Right? So that was the first thing that clicked in my head when he said that to me. The spirit that is up in them is not upright. I'm like, how is eating them is going to save them? I don't understand it. It says, set him not by thee when he has overthrown thee, because that's what they do when they get into, like, why is Rachel Dolezal, right, who lived her adult life as a light-skinned black woman, right? I don't know how she got away with it, but she did. She married some black guy. I wondered if he actually knew that she was a white woman. He probably did. You know, you have to meet her parents. And he's a damn fool for putting it up. It's all crazy. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it as I'm talking about it. I'm just thinking about how crazy that is. Like, you married to this white woman, that's posing as a light-skinned black woman, right? I know you met her parents. She works at the NAACP, whatever, right? The head of that, right? She is the head of it. She's running it. Matter of fact, I think she's the one of the people that came up with the Black Lives Matter slogan, right? So interesting enough. So it's crazy. And this nigga didn't say anything about it, right? She had to get outed by, I forgot how she got, a reporter asked her a question, I don't know. But it says, set him not by thee, lest he have overthrown thee. So now she's running the NAACP, a white woman. Or how it do say, a white woman. A white woman is running the NAACP. That's what's happening right now, right? Then it says, set him not by thee, lest when he has overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. And that's what happened. When they came over to America, pretending that their ship blew too far over here because they were looking for India, and they didn't know where to, they're lost. Like, hey, Indian people, can you help us? We're hungry. We don't, we're lost. And what happened? Oh, Salaki. So what happened? They came over here and they murdered 80 million Native Americans. Because it says, set him not by thee, lest when he overthrow thee, he stand up in thy place. And now they call this place America, after they killed 80 million of them, right? That's what they do. No country on this planet that they settle at where they did not kill and usurp the people that lived there, right? No place on this planet you can think of that they're at that the original people there did not have to die, right? Or get into slavery, right? So it says, set him not by thee, lest when he has overthrew thee, he stand up in thy place, neither let him sit at thy right hand. So don't be like, oh, this is my buddy. You know what I'm saying? This is my guy. This is my right hand man. Like, a lot of these women, especially our black women, they call themselves having these white best friends, right? These white girls' best friends. Not knowing that she's only around you because she's jealous of you. She's trying to learn your swag. She's trying to learn, your way, right? Because it's something about a black woman that discusses white women. White women hate it, right? They hate it so much that they love it. That's why they get their lips big. That's why they try to do the surgery to get their bodies shaped a certain way, because they envy you. And you giving this white woman all the ammunition to usurp you. So now she's sleeping with your man. She's sleeping with other black men and all that stuff, contaminating everybody, right? So, and not understanding that it's all jealousy because she secretly hates you. Like, I know a lot of times, especially you be in the mall, and I hate it too. I see like a little black girl, a little chubby black girl with her little white friend, and she walking like 2 steps behind her white friend, holding all the bags. Like, you just became her, like, you are her black accessory. That's what you are, essentially. Right? You think you got you a white friend that's nice, and no, you was her black accessory, right? That's what you are. It's a fashion statement to them, right? Just like back in the early 2000s or something like that. What was it? The slogan was, every entourage got to have a little person, right? So in their little worldview, so you got to have you a black best friend to follow you around, right? And our people don't know that they talk about them behind their back. They don't know that, right? But I mean, like I said, I know plenty. I can few people, white people that I have talked to, and these white people that I have talked to, these are the white people that a lot of black people will say, oh, they're good, they're the good ones, they like black people, they listen to black music, blah 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 blah. All the excuses we make to for, to accept these people, right? And those same people that you would call the good ones, the ones that you would say is not the racist, they talk about you behind your back. They do. Because they tell me. Because I'm honest. The same way I talk to y'all, I talk to them. So, and white people respect honesty. You know what I'm saying? They hate us, but they like to know where you stand. And when they know where you stand, they'll be honest. Right? There's been so many times they open up their phone, show me their black friend, and be like, and showing pictures and be laughing about them, calling them Uncle Toms, Oreos. This is what they say about you when you're not around. Right? That's why I say this all the time. Your so-called white friend, ask them to tell you what white people talk about when there's no black people around. I bet you they won't tell you. Right? Not even the ones I'm telling you about, they didn't even tell me. I asked them the same question. The conversation got silent. Right? It got turned into something else. Right? They was pretty much honest about a lot of other stuff, but I'm trying to tell you, it is an inherited nature that they have. I'm not saying you can't be cool with a few of them, maybe. But it says, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. So you just got to know that. So if you want to take that chance of dancing with the snake, being a snake charmer, just know, never trust thy enemy, for like iron rust, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. Though thou be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass. Meaning you're going to see straight clearly what their agenda is. And thou shalt know that his rust has not been all wiped away. Meaning that Eminem, right? Everybody love Eminem, right? Told somebody a few days ago that Eminem is one of my favorite rappers. He's on the list, right? He's not my favorite rapper. Everybody knows DMX is my favorite rapper. But he's on the list, right? Now Eminem has a song where he called a black woman the N-word, right? Everybody got mad at Eminem. We didn't expect Eminem to do that because he rose with a whole bunch of black people, right? But Eminem married a white woman, right? So he understood the assignment. Although he does his thing in a rap game, right? Cold with it, right? But he still married a white woman at the end of the day, right? Because he understood what's going on, right? So, and then, like I said, people were so shocked that he used those words, right? But it says, never trust thy enemy, for like iron rust, so is his wickedness. So it's going to be a point in time where that one person that you think is cool, they're going to show you something. And you'll be like, dang, I knew it. I knew it. Right? Growing up, one of my best friends was white. Right? Hanging out with him on his porch. And he called me the N-word. Right? Now, I was taken back. Because we've been best friends since like first grade, I want to say. And I'm like, I know this guy is tripping. Because he know that I can whoop his ass. He know this. I'm like, he got to be like, something ain't got to be right. Because he knows what I can do. So why is he doing this? So, what grade was I? I think I was either 7th grade, 8th grade, I don't know. But, I left, having, then, it was a while since we spoke or whatever, right? So, now, again, he's one of those ones too. You would say, oh yeah, he's one of the good ones. Again, that was a best friend of mine growing up. But it says, never trust thy enemy, although he humble himself and go crouch and take good heed and beware of him. Right? We gotta always watch, right? Jump back down to 12. Set him not by thee, lest when he has overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. Right? That's what they're gonna do. It says, and thou at the last remember my words and prick wherewith, right? Who will pity a charmer that is bitten? So we gotta understand these things. Who will pity a charmer? The little snake charmers. You see the little Indian niggas, right? They doing a little flute thing, right? and the little snake is dancing in the basket, then say like the snake just decide to bite the man on the face real quick. Ain't nobody gonna be like, oh dang, that's messed up, right? When Sifroid and Roy, them little whatever them people is, the lion dudes, right? When the people the guy that got attacked by the lion, the little two gay twins, right? You got attacked by the circus guy that got attacked, right? Nobody say, oh dang, that's messed up, the lion ate him. They like, well, shit, he had it coming, right? That's what people said. Why? Because it said, who will pity a charmer that is bitten? So if you want to roll the dice and say, well, they're not all bad, it ain't all, they ain't all bad. He says, who will pity a charmer that is bitten by a serpent, or any such come nigh a wild beast, right? So, just like, we didn't pity the little lion tamer dude from the circus when the lion turned on him, and many other occasions that happen like that. I don't feel bad when Holly Berry divorces her white husband and she say, well, he used to call me nigger. Like, you married this guy, right? You married this white man, and whenever he got angry at you, he called you the N-word, right? But we would tell ourselves, oh, well, he's a good white guy because he married a black woman. But nobody tells their story of what goes on in that household, right? Holly Berry, only after her divorce, speaks on how he called her the N-word, right? Back over here. And it says, I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish, warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon. You must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will direct essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when recommended of the priest and is contradictory to their parents' teachings. So it's like, look, we're going to teach this docile religion called Christianity, this watered down Christianity. Their parents is going to teach it to their kids. So if the older ones that know a little better try to rile up the younger ones, they're not going to go against their parents because they like, well, my parents taught us this. Like how we say today. I was talking to somebody, and they're like, well, my mama told me about this and my grandma taught me this, right? We will hold on to a lie just because a family member or someone that we hold dear to us told it to us, right? But it says, your actions will be directed essentially to the younger ones. Because, if you teach you attack because you can't do anything with the old ones because they already gone, right? So you have to kill them off, right? Or just scrutinize them and make them, the friends of society. And just work on the young, right? And it says, your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revoke when recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends. Who is the father of their soul? You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirits in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. That is, hold on. Let me take a drink to that. Teach students to read and not to reason. That is the Black Christian Church 101. That's why we don't know the Bible. That's why we can read this book and don't get nothing out of it. We don't know how to break it down because our oppressor said this. He says, where that? Teach students to read and not to reason. So, said, teach us how to read the book, right? You can read the words in the book, right? It's just like me, for example. People say, when I talk about speaking the Hebrew language, right? I would tell people I know a few words, but I can't speak the language fluently, but I can read it, right? So although I can read Hebrew, right, I don't necessarily know what I'm reading unless I have the words interpreted for me. So that's what they're teaching our people to do, to read the words in the Bible, but don't be able to interpret it. And that's what we do. That's why so many people, you would ask them, they'll say something, right? Or they'll call themselves trying to disprove whatever you say, and they will read a Bible verse. Like, for example, they'd be like, let me see, let me find something right here. Something, and it says, let the field be joyful, and all that is therein, then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice. Then they'll look at you. And, it's like, okay, what does that mean? Right? And so it's like, and they will read a verse to you, like that verse posted, but you gotta break it down. You just, and but it says, teach the students to read and not reason, right? And that's why we don't know this book. That's why we can't understand it. That's why we can read this book and people get a million different ideas from it, because we have been taught not to reason, not to go scripture by scripture, line by line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little, right? We haven't been taught that, right? It says, their compatriots are some of the principles that must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever. So why is your grandma still, showing up to church, giving her hard-earned money, and now you see your mama and them doing it too, right? It says, evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever, submission to the white colonists. So that's why, everybody is so docile and this, like especially our old Christian people. You can't say anything about the white man. You can't say anything about master, right? Because like God loved everybody, right? Even master, right? You're gonna be in heaven, and you're gonna be waiting, going through the gates of heaven. Master gonna be right next to you, smiling like, "Hey, what's up? Hey, sorry about that. I ain't, I'm my bad." And y'all just gonna walk into it, and you're gonna be like, it's cool, Master. That was a long time ago. Y'all just gonna walk into heaven together, right? No, it don't happen like that, right? It says, evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonists, so they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. So that's why a lot of our people don't even know that we're under, still mental slavery. You know what I'm saying? Like they still enslaving us. They took the shackles off, and now they mentally, doing it, right? And it says, so they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. So that's why our people, we don't have the tendency to buck up against the system, right? Then the few of us that did, we watched them try and die, right? So we like, okay, well, they tried and died, so let us just keep on trying to please Master. Don't want to do anything to make them mad, right? Don't want to buck up the system, make anything crazy, right? So let me just go to work, don't say nothing, and hopefully I get that good old pie in the sky, right? It says, recite every day, happy are those who are weeping, because the kingdom of God is them. So it said, no, tell them it's okay to have a dreary life, a sad life, a oppressed life, and you got problems around the corner every which way you turn, right? It's okay, because when you die, God is going to say, hey, good job, come here, give me a hug. I'm sorry for all that stuff, how all that rough life you had. It's all good. Come on into these gates. Go ahead and grab you a drink, right? Right? That's what people thinking, right? That's what the concept is. That's where, that's why, you know, we develop a mindset of like, well, we just gonna sit and wait, one day it will change, but not knowing how they say, you gotta be the change that you wanna see. You gotta be the change you wanna see, right? These devils is not gonna change nothing, okay? They're not gonna change the system because you're uncomfortable, because they're not uncomfortable, right? So it will never happen. It says, recite every day, happy are those who are weeping because the kingdom of God is for them, right? So, that's why a lot of our people reverence in their poorest condition. We magnify it, we make it seem, glorify. We got women that proudly pronounce their single motherhoodness, like it's okay to be part of a broken family, right? So we got our men that reverence on this promoting negativity and violence and stuff, corruption amongst our people, right? And whoredom, right? So it says, recite every day, happy are those who are weeping because the kingdom of God is for them, right? So we develop this defeated mind state, that, well, it is what it is, we develop that mind state. And we see the infrastructure that helped develop our people to think the way that they think. And it's called the institution of Christianity that was set up through white supremacy as we're reading. This is a historical document written by King Leopold, right? To the missionaries that's going around promoting Christianity, right? And we started off by saying, well, we're going to read this. And as we're reading this, ask ourselves, do our current church operate like this to this day? And the answer is a resoundingly yes, they do. Right? We're not done. It says, convert always the blacks by using the whip, right? So beat it into them. That's why how our people became Christianity. I asked the question earlier. I said, a lot of our people are Christian, and we ask like, how do you become a Christian? They say, well, my mom or my dad or whatever was a Christian, right? But it says here, what did it say? Go back to it. It says, convert always the blacks by using the whip. So we were beaten to believe the stuff that we believed. And over time, our mamas and daddies taught us this mess. And now we perpetuate it to this day. Right? To this day. Right? Because just like we read up here, where it says, let me see if I can find it real quick. Says something, let me see if I can find it. Okay, right. Okay. It says, your actions will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contrary to their parents' teachings. So they focus on your parents, and they beat it and they instill it into the parents, and the parents teach their children, right? And now, 2025, we still docile and still weak and feminine men that sit up in these Christian churches, right? So it says, convert always, convert always the black by using the whip. So beat it into them, right? What's your name, boy? Toby, right? What color is Jesus? He's white. All right, beat it in him, right? It says, keep their, it says keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in a sign of recognition, goats, chickens, or eggs every time you visit their villages. So now this is where pastor, you go to church and you just say like you go to church, you see pastor pass the collection plate about 50, 11 times around, right, before you get up out of there, right? And this is the concept of that right here, right? This is where the birth of it, right here. Let's read it one more time for the people in the back. It says, where we at? Boom. It says, force them. Oh, let's start back here. It says, keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Right? So, you want to, let's start right there before we get to the other part. You as a man, you wonder why your woman don't listen to you at home, but her boss can tell her one thing and she jump up high to the sky and do whatever. You say, hey, look, baby, I don't want you to go to work today. I got this day planned. I want us to do this and that. I want you to take the day off. She gonna say, no, nigga. So master want me on the plantation because he paying me some money to be there. She's gonna honor what her bosses say more than what her man say. That is a problem, right? That is a problem. No woman should listen to their boss or their job more than they man. Right? If you do, you are a slave, and a good one too. Right? So, but this is what they created, right? A dysfunction where they are now the man of your woman. Now she now answers to them instead of you, right? They tell her when to go and they tell her when to see you and when not to see you, right? If she want a day off, if she want to stay the day with her man or husband, she has to ask him to do so, right? Ain't that cool? So it says, right, man. So keep their women in submission of 9 months to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in sign of recognition, goats, chickens, or eggs. So what I mean by how this is how the church operate with the collection stuff, right? And remember, he's talking to missionaries, right? So he said every time you go visit them, make them pay you this. So every time you go to church, they pass around a collection plate for tithes, right? They do that, right? But guess what? Tithes was only taken every 2 years, right? I believe. I can look it up if we got to. I want to say 4 years, but every 2 years, just for the sake of argument, we'll say every 2 years, right? Could be 4, don't quote me. But the point is, every time you go to the temple, you wasn't giving tithes, right? But the modern Christian church says every time you go to church Sunday, you got to give them 10%, right? But when tithing was only the 10% after a full 2 years or so, or years, I got to look it up, right? But it's telling you to pay but it said every time you visit them, make them pay you, right? Then it says, uh, goats, chicken, eggs. Every time you visit their village, and make sure that the niggers never become rich, right? And how do you stop the niggers from never becoming rich? By putting mega churches in the worst black neighborhoods, right? By putting churches, period, on every other black corner, every other corner in the black neighborhoods, right? Why is it a church in the worst neighborhoods, right? And the neighborhoods don't get better? We gotta ask ourselves these questions. The reason why they don't get better because the church is not there to teach you of God. Because it tells us right here. What did it tell us? Teach the students not to read and to reason. So you're not going to understand the Bible. Then what else did it tell us? Boom, 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 boom. Where it at? Where it at? We seen it. We read it. Where it at? I can quote it, but I want to read it. But for the sake of time, I'm going to quote it. It says, and never teach the niggers about God. That's what it said. Right? It said, never teach the niggers about God. Right? So it says, where are we at? It says, boom, boom, boom. Every time you visit their village and make sure that the niggers never become rich. And you do that by ciphering the money out the hoods, by the black church making $500 million weekly across America, right? That's how you rob the black community, right? By taking $500 million across America weekly from the black people, right? And what else? It says, seeing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax every week at Sunday Mass. So every Sunday you pay a tax. You know, they call it 10% tithing. Then after you pay that 10% tithing, you got to give a love offering. Then you got to give a gift offering. Then you got to give you got to help them for this building fund. You got to help sister buy a new eye. Her leg done fell off, so she done lost her little fake leg, so they got to take up a donation for that, right? So they passed the thing around 11 times before you know it, right? I used to joke about not being a Christian because it costs too much, right? You need a membership to go to church, right? Like a gym membership. You know, cause that's essentially what you have, a gym membership when you go to church. You pay them just like you would pay the gym, right? Then it says, use the money supposed for the poor to build detective. Hold on. Use the money for the poor to build flourishing businesses, business centers, institutions of confessional systems, which allow you to be good detectives that denouncing any black that has a different concession or contrary to that of the decision maker, right? So basically, teach the people to snitch on each other. You know, that's where we get these Uncle Tom stuff from, right? I mean, they always been around, of course, but basically promote it, right? You know, commercialize the Uncle Tom, right? That's basically what it's doing. It says, teach the niggers to forget their heroes. That's why we don't care about none of that stuff, man. Like, when you talking about that black, biggity black stuff for, man, we don't care about that black power shit, man, right? Teach the niggers to forget about their heroes, right? And to adore only yours. That's why Batman and Spider-Man is my favorite superheroes to this day, right? And that's true. I love Batman and Spider-Man, right? But anyway, that's besides the point, right? But it says teach them to forget their heroes and admire yours. That's why, you know, we don't respect strong black men, right? You know, we look at them as a threat, right? And because we don't admonish our heroes anymore, right? If in this current day, Malcolm X would never, if Malcolm X lived during this era, he would never, he would he would never be Malcolm X. He would still be Malcolm Red Little. That's how y'all would treat him. Y'all treat him like Malcolm Red Little. Y'all would never let Malcolm X be Malcolm X, right? Cause like, nah, nigga, you used to rob people. Like, you was a drug dealer, dude. Like, you was a dope fiend. Like, get out of here, Red. That's what you would have told him. You would have never let Malcolm X grow to be Malcolm X, right? And that's, that's what we do. Because we've been conditioned to do that to each other. Not to let our heroes be heroes, right? To, what they call it, crabs in a bucket. You see somebody doing something, you pull them down, right? We'll never, ever, ever do that, right? Martin Luther King would never, ever been Martin Luther King if he lived in this era. Because y'all would have talked about him sleeping with all type of women, right? All type of white women he, done had in hotel rooms and having orgies with. Y'all would have spoke on those things, right? So, people don't, we don't allow people to grow because we've been conditioned to be haters, right? It says, teach the niggers to forget their heroes and to adore only yours, right? That's why we don't, we so quick to say, oh, that was a long time ago. Why you bringing up old stuff, right? But white people to this day, they still honor George Washington. They still honor their General Lee. They still honor their Thomas Jefferson. White people love their heroes, right? They love John Wayne, right? They love John Wayne. They love their Elvis Presley, right? But you get a certain age, oh, you old, you washed up, you know what I'm saying? That's how we treat our older people, our heroes. We call them washed up. But it says, teach the nigger to forget their heroes and to adore only yours. Never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. So, like, if a black person comes to your house, don't even offer them a seat, right? Because if you offer them a seat, what that gonna do? That's gonna make that nigga think he's equal now. You think you can sit down like a white man, huh? Right? That's what you're gonna put in their head. So, don't even offer them a seat when they come to your house, right? It says, never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. Right? How many of us got white people that we know that never invited us to their house, but they always coming to our house, right? They always coming over our house, eating everything we got. Oh, I love your cooking. Oh, you cook so good. Oh, these greens are so good. Oh, can I get some more hot sauce, right? They does that, but how many of them invited you to their house, right? And it says, don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner, even if he give you chicken every time you arrive at his house, right? So, this is what we're dealing with, right? And this is the state of Christianity where it caused us to be docile in our beliefs, in our religion, and it gave us a watered down religion that's supposed to be, godly, but it's not. We see that it was created to make people slaves, right? And, it's there's other things we can look at too that shows that how the religion of Christianity has been used to enslave people. I got a book Uh, we read a little bit. We read like an excerpt from it, and I've been bad. I was supposed to read through the book and come up with a lesson on that too. But we're to y'all before, but it's called Rivers of Gold, right? And in that book, the Spanish Empire, Queen Elizabeth, right? Queen Victoria, whatever that chick name was, Queen Victoria, and King Fernando and all them, speaking on how they can, the what they call the manifest destiny, all that stuff, right? How they use that to enslave the world by converting the people that they come encounter with to Christians so they can steal everything they got. Like we just read in the King Leopold things. That's the point. That's why they made you a Christian, so they can rob you and make you a Darcel. Because if you're a Christian and you believe that God loves everybody and you can't be violent to people, when they're robbing you, you're not going to do anything about it. You're going to be like, oh, it's okay. God is good, that was the plan. And we still follow this fake religion called Christianity that was set up to rob us and to enslave us. Because, again, they don't follow the same Christianity you follow. Because their Christianity allows them to kill innocent people when something happened to them, right? Like I said, when 9/11 happened, they bombed villages of people that did not do anything, that don't know, they did that to them. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, America blew up villages and cities over in Japan. They overkilled the Japanese. When they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, historians and even their own military would tell you that was overkill. They didn't need to do that. They just did it because they made it and they wanted to use it, right? Because Japan was already on fire, right? They was already, on a breakup about to surrender, right? But they like, nah, we got this new shiny thing. Let's see how the power of a star works. Let's see if I take the power of a star and drop it on a city. Let's see what that looks like, right? That's what they did, right? So that's what we're dealing with, right? Let's get this before we get up out of here. Let's get right here. So Deuteronomy 28:64, it says, "And the Lord will scatter thee among the nations from one end of the earth unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, thou neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." So that's what's going on. Now we're in these false religions, following all these different ideologies, right? Just like it was prophesied that we would when we get scattered to these different places, right? And over here it says, jump up to 47. It says, "Because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for abundance of all things, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies." And that's where we at now. We have to serve our enemies. That's why we have to learn our religion from our enemies. We have to do everything. Then it says, "Serve thy enemies, which the Lord thy God shall send against thee in hunger." So whenever we go grocery shopping, we go to a grocery store that's owned by one of our enemies, because our people they don't have a foothold in the grocery industry, right? We don't own no farms and stuff like that and stuff to provide food for people, right? It says, "In thirst, we don't own any water companies. We don't own Pepsi. We don't own Coca-Cola or nothing like that. We don't own none of these companies that provide beverages, right?" It says, "In nakedness, we don't own any textile companies. We don't own any clothing companies. We don't own any these textile mills to produce these clothing that we wear." Even if Jay-Z, Puff Daddy put their name on the clothing, they don't own the textile mills. They just own the design, in a name, right? It says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So it says, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord thy God shall send against thee, in hunger, and thirst, and nakedness, and want of all things. So anything we want, we have to go to them, whether it's a driver's license, barber's license, anything that we want, we have to get it from them. We have to give essentially their permission to do it. And it says, and want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he has destroyed thee. And that's what happened. Our people are destroyed, right? Spiritually and mentally, right? So, and that's where we at. And that's what Christianity had done to our people, right? And in the words of Jordan Peele, get out of that false ideology, right? And hopefully we can come up out of that stuff, right? And understand that, like I said, this religion is a man-made thing. And we see how the tenets that we see set up today, you know, the thievery, the robbery, right? The lack of support that we get from the church. We see the tenets of where it comes from. And like I said, we could have went even further back to, you know, see how they, you know, revised this stuff into how we got now, right? But we just picked it up in the 1800s, just a decade or so after slavery, right? And the stuff that they were propagating to maintain our subjugation even after slavery. So they took the chains off and they put it on us mentally, right? So yeah, that's just what it is. And hold up. So yeah, but no, yeah. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying, that was edifying. You know what I'm saying, we get a better understanding of this false ideology that we've been following. You know, hopefully that we're not continuing following it. You know, and like I said, and we gotta, if we are gonna follow something, we have to do the history and, you know, see why is it really, you know, of God? Is this something that we should be doing? A lot of times we get into stuff and we don't do the research on it, and you know, and even this, you know, being an Israelite, I used to tell people all the time, like, you don't have to take my word for it, research it yourself, right? And because, like I said, I'm not opposed to people asking questions. You know, I say all the time, ask me questions, right? You know, even though I'm half blind, don't, you know what I'm saying, it ain't the glasses. So if you ask questions while I'm doing this and I don't answer, it's not because I ignored it, because I can't see, right? It's not because of the glasses. So don't be like, well, take the glasses off. I still won't be able to see, right? So ask questions, and I will answer the questions, right? But it's not the Christian church where you can't ask questions, where pastor going to tell you, well, I don't know, go pray about it. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that here. So I'm going to say shalom, peace. Hopefully that was edifying. We out. Let's go. Get me something to eat. That's what I need.
Cloud chase, that's the shit that glorify. I don't even try hard to get this shit immortalized. No records of a trace when your crime is organized. No man is over me, I'm highest in the morning time. Lucky in the birds when I cross the state borderline. Spin your black a horse pie. Fuck you, bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga, hold the line. My nutsack, I'm grabbing mine, both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime, you know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to know it's me. When conflict get crucial, I can't help it to move boggishly. Smoke you like the stove in you, beat you like the stove in me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot nonsensical, no peace amongst enemies, no peace.